Exploring our human symbols has been a part of all of humankind, and they show up in primitive, prehistoric cave drawings. They show up today in modern abstract art. And in between, we have symbols and motifs in animals, flowers, religion, all of the aspects that where something represents something else can be a symbol. A book can be a symbol of knowledge and wisdom. A plant can be a symbol of personal growth and greening after a period of time laying dormant. This episode is going to take a deep dive into 3 areas of symbols, and they show up all over the place, and you're going to have a chance to make art in each of these areas. So let's get into this. Let's get this started. Welcome into the Modern Creative Woman podcast. I'm Dr. Amy Backos, your hostess here on the art and science of creativity. When I was a child, there was a book I was obsessed with. I looked at it over and over. You might have heard of it. It's 1972 it came out. I Saw a Purple Cow. And the authors are Anne Cole, Carolyn Haas, Faith Bushnelli, and Betty Weinberger. There are so many amazing qualities to this book, and upon reflection, I think it is maybe the first art therapy book that I've ever seen. The subheading is 100 Other Recipes for Learning. And the book allowed imagination, exploration, and the idea that thinking, using your mind to create something and then building it in the tangible way, either a drawing or creating some kind of object, gave me such pleasure. And even if I didn't have time to make an object, I loved this book. The idea of a recipe book for creativity and imagination really appealed to me. And I started thinking about this book as I'm getting ready for publication of the Art Therapy Toolkit. The I Saw a Purple Cow book had simple illustrations, and the authors were speaking to children about age 4 and 5. And I remember loving this book long past that age. A listener wrote me recently and said, I'm a believer in the power of art. Now, what do I do? And I thought that's a great question. I think it matters that we have mentors and guides and places where we can glean information. So I wanted to share some of the ideas from psychology specifically that you can apply to your everyday practice of being a human being, and then, of course, apply to your art practice. In terms of mentors, I think authors have had a huge influence on me. And the women who've supported my work as an art therapist and as a psychologist allowed me to explore my creativity, make art in a way that was not perhaps usual or aesthetically pleasing, using the art strategically as a way of knowing requires support and I think a lot of encouragement, because it feels pretty risky to make ugly art. And when we start making art without the object in mind, without the finished project in mind, liberation really happens. And I can still go into that mode of worrying about the final project. And at this point, I know how to remind myself, if I go into that mode, that this is for the purpose of me learning, of knowing, of understanding. And oftentimes I'm using art and teaching the women I work with to use art strategically, not just as a hobby or for relaxation. Although it is that, I'm using it in a way that is strategic and moves people towards what it is that they want to know about themselves or others or their community. The art process in that way has nothing to do with the product and everything to do with the process of making it. a pivotal book in the field of psychology that allowed us to understand what's happening artistically in our psychology is, of course, the famous book by Carl Jung, Man and His Symbols. The idea that we can use symbology to understand ourselves, and we create symbols as a mode of expressing ourselves, was not new. However, Jung took it to a place of understanding in an analytic way why we're using symbols, how we're using symbols, and ultimately how to be a more strategic user of symbols. The idea that anything can become a symbol, as I mentioned earlier, is documented in this book. And it says, the history of symbolism shows that everything can assume symbolic significance. Natural objects like plants, stones, animals, people, mountains, valleys, the moon, the wind, or even made up things like houses, boats, cars, and then abstract forms, numbers, shapes like a triangle, a square, a circle. And Jung states clearly, in fact, the whole cosmos is a potential symbol. And a symbol has a meaning that we assign to it. There are the universal type of symbols, and one of them is the circle. They're found everywhere, all around the world. In religious contexts, it's the first shape that children draw when they begin to move from scribbling. They draw a circle first of all. You'll find a circle everywhere. We eat off circle plates usually. Our glasses are circles. The more you look for circles, the more you will see circles. It's a powerful and potent symbol. We'll get into that in just a little bit. Let's dive into 3 relevant symbols that are manifest everywhere you look. Animal symbols, the circle, as I mentioned before, and then modern paintings. And by that I mean abstract paintings or imaginative painting. So let's start with animals. Animals have been around since the beginning in cave drawings. So the symbol is often considered something desirable, and that's what anthropologists and cultural anthropologists have speculated about animal drawings on cave walls. And there were, of course, drawings all over the place, but the ones that survived lasted in caves because they were able to withstand the elements. So Paleolithic cave paintings consist almost entirely of figures of animals. And they're rendered in really incredible ways. The shapes are mimicking the shapes of animals and how they move. And the pictures might suggest an urge for success in hunting these animals. They might be created as a way to bring the animals to the hunter. And Jung says that there's an underlying psychological, what he calls a fact, an underlying psychological fact is that a strong identification between a living being and its image, which is considered to be the being's soul. So there's this strong identification between the living being and its image. And the idea that when we have an image of an animal, we associate it with the life force or the vitality of that animal. So from here, you can start to imagine why an animal symbol might be really useful to people. So everybody, I think, has a favorite animal. You have a zodiac animal, you have your preferred animal, maybe you have a fond memory of a first pet. These now in your mind are your personal signs that have some kind of meaning to them. So taking those and putting them into imagery is a really powerful way to understand more about yourself. So you can choose an animal based on its merits. If you're about to embark in a school program or a learning situation, maybe you want to explore the wise owl. If you are looking to have more fun in your life, maybe you'd like to explore the play of otters or dolphins. If you're looking to bring more happiness into your life, maybe it's a monkey or a dog. All of these animals can be sort of a universal symbol, and then they can be a personal sign that guides you. And I've done a lot of animal drawings, not because I wanted to draw an animal in particular, but I wanted to understand something about myself. And I've drawn everything from a stuffed animal to, an owl from a photograph. And I've copied animals from paintings. And the idea is not to make a beautiful painting. The idea is to understand something about the spirit of that animal. So here is my first suggestion for you in terms of taking the ideas of how to use creativity in your life into the real world. Have a look at some animals. You might have photographs of pets from when you were younger. You could look through a magazine. You could find images on Pinterest or on the local animal shelter, National Geographic. The idea that finding an animal that speaks to you is a wonderful process, and I want to give you a little suggestion for it. Last night I played a game. I was looking at Architectural Digest magazine, and every page I looked at, I said out loud, yes or no. And I was starting to distill the images into things I really liked and things I sort of liked and things I didn't like. And I had a few maybes in the beginning, and then I thought, that's not how I want to play the game. I want it to be a yes, a definite yes, and anything that's a maybe or a no is no. So every page, each house, each room in each house, it was a yes or a no from me. And it was a great experience. It's like playing hot and cold when you're a kid, of identifying what pleased me. So you can start looking through Pinterest at animals and saying yes or no. And no is anything that would be maybe. And yes are the ones that are most pleasing to you. And when you have a handful of animals that are very pleasing to you, pick one and do a drawing of it. You could print out the picture and make a collage of it. Explore more about that animal. You can learn about that animal's life cycle, its habits. You can explore the symbolism of each animal and what it means. The idea of understanding more about yourself by projecting onto this animal is a really powerful technique. So I would love for you to begin there in this exploration of self. It's a strategic use of art to know yourself. After you create your animal, object, clay, object, or painting, consider the cultural relevance in your own culture, in your own experience, and in the kind of immediate cultures that you're exposed to. From there, you can look to other cultures, but try to sort through what it means for you in your culture, because knowing our personal culture and preferences and expectations is critical for being a citizen of the world. We have to know what we consider the average or the usual so that we can consider what other people find to be their usual. Next, I'd like to talk about the circle or the mandala. This is what Carl Jung has to say about it. Whether the symbol of a circle appears in primitive sun worship or modern religion, in myths or dreams, in the mandalas drawn by the Tibetan monks, in the ground plans of cities, or in the spherical concepts of early astronomers, it always points to the single most vital aspect of life, the ultimate wholeness. So did you catch that? Wherever the circle shows up, in science, in art, in religion, in art practices, in city design, It all points to one thing, according to Jung: ultimate wholeness. Jung was considered Sigmund Freud's spiritual heir in that he was exploring what religion meant to human psychology. And not religion specifically, but beliefs about the divine. And he wrote a story about Buddha and how the circle is represented in Buddhism. He wrote about like an abstract mandala being used in Christian religions. The idea of Zen priests speaking about how to use the circle. He quotes, "In the Zen sect, the circle represents enlightenment. It symbolizes human perfection." So each of the areas that he explored looked at the circle as the ultimate wholeness and something that we're striving for as individuals internally and as society, that we can come together, be whole. If you look at maps, when you're in cities, you kind of zoom out like a paper map, and you'll see that so many cities are built around circles and roundabouts. The circles are everywhere. And using your daily present moment awareness to consider a circle, explore the circle, draw the circle, look for circles out on your walk or when you're on your way to work. This idea of searching for wholeness in just short moments of time is a clear path towards your own wholeness. So we've talked about animals as symbols and creating personal signs using animals to understand yourself. We've talked about circles and the idea that they are represented everywhere, and just value priming your brain to look for circles wherever you are can give you a sense of your own wholeness. Drawing mandalas, finding a coloring book with mandalas. There's so many ways that the art will show up for you and give you insight and information that you're looking for. And so finally, I'd like to move on to what Jung calls modern art as a symbol. And you might think of it as abstract expressionism or art that does not have a form. So it's not a picture of an animal or a person, that it's pure color and it's focused on pure emotion. I love the paintings of Mark Rothko, the ability to use art as emotional content without any form, just color, pure color for emotional content is so intriguing to me. Jung describes the abstract painting section of his book by stating what he calls a psychological fact. The psychological fact that the artist has at all times been the instrument and spokesperson of the spirit of their age. It matters deeply the time and place in which we begin to create abstract art. A modern artist is recognizing the interrelationship of the work of art and its time. So in the moment is what's happening when you create your own abstract expressionist piece of art. If you're struggling with strong emotion, if you're wondering how to make a decision or what the kind of best option is for you in any given moment, abstract expressionism can allow you the space and time to really go to your own answers. And the idea of trusting yourself, that the art can lead you where you need to go, and trusting that you can make the right decisions, gather the insights that you need, is such a powerful tool in art therapy. Returning to the idea of time and abstract expressionism, Jung says the modern artist often recognizes the interrelation of the work of art and its time. There is something relevant and timely about the emergence of abstract expressionism. And modern art gives us that feeling of here and now. Largely because it lacks form, we're just left to our own emotional vibrations within our body. To be able to look at an abstract piece of art gives you information. Making your own abstract representation of art gives you a sense of unraveling the complexity of whatever you're feeling. So I want to invite you to do some color blocking, and with intense color. Oil pastels, I think, are great for this on cardboard or cardstock, and to create maybe 3 sections of color. They could blend together or they don't have to. You can divide them with different shade all around it, or you don't have to. The idea of using color to understand what you're feeling will give you so much information. This is an incredibly strategic use of art and art therapy to understand yourself and what is happening for you. It reveals your unconscious emotional state and gives you a chance to do something with it when that material is out of your head and onto the paper. You can begin to explore it. So the art and the emotion comes first, maybe storytelling comes next. Telling your story to an art therapist about your art reveals so much. And I'm always moved when people start to talk about their art and tears come to their eyes. They have an inner knowing that felt unreachable before they put it into the complexity or the simplicity of their art piece. Moving past some of these ideas from the 1960s, I want to talk with you about women and our symbols. The idea that women have been excluded from psychology and medicine in terms of understanding them is quite well documented. So, the Women's Dictionary of Symbols and Sacred Objects might be of interest to you. There's also the Women's Dictionary of Symbols. You have a lot of opportunities to really explore symbols that mean something specific for women. There's the Women's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets. I kind of love that title. You have a lot of opportunities to understand your own symbols and then explore them in the wider context of what women have said about symbology, specifically the meaning and how we can take this personal sign and learn more about it by looking at universal and cultural symbols. So this gives you 3 options for knowing more about yourself, understanding yourself, revealing aspects of your unconscious, or manifesting your women's intuition into a place of art and symbols that you can then make tangible actions on. So the first was animal symbols and motifs. Second is the circle. And the third is in modern paintings. Specifically, I talked about abstract expressionism. So now that you know all about how symbols can inform us and show up for us all across cultures, all around the world, in religion, in science, in numbers, and in our own personal signs, our favorite animals, the symbols of the circle or abstract paintings. Now that you know, what will you create? If this kind of work appeals to you, and I know it does, I would invite you to share this podcast with women you know. It really helps get the word out. And if you want to do more rich, in-depth work, you can find me on moderncreativewoman.com and have a look at what some of the options are. And there's some free goodies that you can get there. And I also invite you to check out the women's symbology books that I mentioned. If you have a young child, check out the I Saw a Purple Cow book. And all of these will be mentioned in the show notes. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I look forward to speaking with you in the next episode.